All right, we're here with another clip of our Metro Jiu-Jitsu podcast, and I'm here with Coach Mo. How you doing today, Coach?
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So this time I'm in the hot seat, right? You got some questions for me?
I do. We have some questions from your students have actually asked.
Okay.
And parents have asked us questions, and we've gotten questions from the community. So going to just jump right into it.
All right, let's do it.
When did you know you wanted to teach jiu-jitsu?
Oh boy. So it's kind of well, when did I know I wanted to teach jiu-jitsu? I knew somewhere right around two-stripe blue, probably mid-blue. Ironically, though, because I've got a kind of a teaching spirit. I always like to give back with whatever I've done. Like I taught, if I learn something and once I really know it, I'm not the type to try and hoard that knowledge for myself. I try to help others with it. So I reached out to, before I'd never done any martial arts, like period. I had lost one fight and that was it. And I reached out to my jiu-jitsu instructor and said, how much are your classes and how do I go about teaching them? And he's like, he kind of taken aback. He's like, I mean, once you're purple belt, you're definitely good enough to teach. This was 10 years ago. And he's like, but looking back at it now, I see how ridiculous that statement was, having done nothing. And, because all I'm thinking of is once I learn something, let me teach it.
So did you get to teach as a purple belt?
As a purple, not formally. No, I didn't run any classes at our school. Not like formal classes, but I got to teach plenty of people. Informally.
So now that you're a school owner yourself and you're responsible for hundreds of people, do you think that if you had a purple belt here today that wanted to teach, how would you feel about that?
Oh, I would support that. I definitely support that because for two reasons. One is teaching is a manifestation of your knowledge. So it's you've heard it said. It's kind of cliche. You can only teach a portion of what you know. It's like 10% or 20%, something like that. So if I know 100 things, if I know 100 things, I can only teach 10 or 20 of those. Additionally, the jiu-jitsu landscape today is totally different than what it was 10 years ago. When I walked into...
I definitely agree with that because it was, there's nothing better than getting a compliment from your coach or instructor. And I remember as a blue belt, my instructor at the time at Detroit Jiu-Jitsu, Professor Danny Anjami was telling me, you guys are way better than we were. And it really tickled me because I took that statement for years to come, and as blue and at purple and at brown, I just reminded him, "Hey, Danny, we're better than you were at the time." Or I just asked him like jokingly if I could kick his butt, blue for blue, purple
blue
for
belt versus blue
yeah.
belt. Yes, yeah, make that history match up.
But yeah, I agree, and I think everybody knows that jiu-jitsu is definitely evolved, and ranks today are higher and more advanced than they were ranks 5, 10, 15 years ago.
And that's just a combination of one, it's more widespread, it's getting more popular, so more people know it, which is in addition to more people are sharing that knowledge. It was really limited. Now you've got 20 or if you have 2 people looking at a move trying to brainstorm on it versus 24 people. Doesn't matter their rank. I mean, different people think differently. That's the benefit of having a plethora of training partners is you have different eyes on it to ask the right questions and come up with the right solutions.
So you got to work with some of your some newer people as you were more advanced in the school at you used to train at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning at times?
Yeah, we used to, because my, just with my schedule, it was a little bit difficult to make evenings, but I wanted to stay on the mats, so we did what was called an early bird session. Yeah, some days 5, some days 6 in the morning, and they it ended up being I was always joking with the upper ranks. I was like, well, what, the white belts are the only ones with heart around here, because they would show up. And so, yeah, we would do open mat style, maybe do a technique, but maybe even early 5 a.m. Shark Tanks, if you could believe that. But and so we taught, like I said, so I taught a lot. I got used to teaching a lot, just not not formally, not formal classes.
What's been your biggest surprise as a teacher now?
For sure, hands down is probably the speed and the rate at which I'm seeing the kids in our kids program reap the benefits of jiu-jitsu.
What do you mean?
Casey, I don't know if you saw this video I posted. I routinely, a few times now, we've had kids come in their first day and crying, you've seen some of them. They're just crying and they're not, for whatever reason, and I'm thinking, man, this is gonna be a long journey to even get this kid to do anything. And then the very next day,
crying,
crying, running off the mat, wanting, I want to go home, I want to go, like a mental breakdown. I was like, man, this is okay. That's fine. We'll meet them where they're at, but I just thought it would take longer.
Well, what do you like? I have seen that. What do you think causes that, and what's the trigger? Where do you think that comes from?
I can't speak to the motive, and especially with some of them, I don't know their full backgrounds. I do know, dealing with, I taught youth group for almost 10 years. Definitely not having some type of father figure, I think, plays a huge part in it. I think it could, again, not knowing the full background, but also it's how they're nurtured, someone's nurture versus nature. If they're really nurtured and coddled, you're kind of catering to that. The other thing is, with the kids that I taught in the youth group, a lot of them come from broken homes. They have a lot of luggage, and some of them do. And so just learning to kind of, again, meet them where they're at and start from where they're at. You can't cookie cutter. You can't treat. You got 6 kids. You can't. Can you treat Jabril the same way you one of your daughters? You have to treat them differently, I would assume.
Yeah, that's a good point, because kids are so different. They're so they're emotional. Their emotional, either you could say emotional luggage, or their emotional courage that
I agree.
That's been established in their life plays a big part in how much risk and experimentation they're willing to do, especially when it comes to being around other kids and getting on coming into a gym where kids are doing really intense exercises, or just running around like little butterflies.
Yeah, some of them. I agree with that. Next question.
Okay, so the classes that you run, you have dozens and dozens of kids in the class, right? And how do you know that from top to bottom that the kids are either learning what you're teaching or just learning in general? You have dozens of kids, dozens of different. You have them from 5 to 13 in the same class. How do you know that they're learning what you're teaching?
That's a good question, and the short answer is, I guess it's kind of a couple-fold. One, you can see them doing it. You can see, we watch their matches, and you can see them playing with the movement, getting to different positions, just like anything else. The second one is they're based on. We like to do an interactive style. Rather than talking at the kids to keep their attention, I ask them. I say, what do I do from here? Is this the right way? Is this the right way? And they're all eager. A lot of them are eager to raise their hands, and they give the correct answer. So and then some of them, though I hold this criteria a little bit more to the adults, is by the questions that they ask. the questions that they ask. If they're asking, but Coach David, he kept pulling me down or spinning me around. What do I do there? Well, that tells me they're paying attention during the matches.
Well, kids ask silly questions.
They do ask.
They ask questions that's unrelated to what happened. Not let alone today, this week.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that? Like, how as an instructor and as a parent do you know that kids are learning? What do you mean by the questions?
Well, I mean the questions, the relevant questions. The relevant questions. To the matches. The relevant questions to I've actually had some kind of suggest moves. What I mean by that is I might be teaching a choke from mount, and they're like, Coach David, you could do the armbar too. I was like, yeah, you absolutely could do the armbar. We're not doing that today, but you could. So it's questions / I guess comments, but you just to where you see where their headspace is at, versus it's the silent one, the ones who talk. Even if 1 out of every 4 questions is relevant, that's still one more than someone who's just sitting quiet.
So if you had to give up one of your secrets, it's been under 3 months. Again, you're pushing a couple hundred students. If you had to give up one of your secrets, what advice could you give to other people who have students and that are trying to build a better teaching style that will help them and everybody in this community be better teachers?
There are no secrets. And what every single student we have, you can't fake it. People can tell if you don't care about them. Parents can tell if you don't care about their kid, if you're only looking for that paycheck. Adults can tell if you're gonna kick them off the mat because you want to get home and you don't have their best interests in that. People can tell. You can't fake that. So conversely, people can also tell when you're being real. And that's the biggest statement we've had is as we work. I'm preaching to the choir here. We work relentlessly to provide value, to check up on our students, to genuinely consider. I talk with some of these students more than I talk with some family members of mine, like blood family members of mine, because I want to, especially the kids. The kids are, with the adults, they can explain to you what's going on with their life. The kids may not, so now it's I gotta get with the parents and see what's going on. Is this normal behavior for them? Is this not? Help me help them. And that's where. So the short answer to that is you have to genuinely care for your students. It's the simple answer is the correct answer. You're not gonna fake it.
Well, I think one thing that's been that you do with your students is being present. So we all microtask and have many things going on throughout the day, but one of the culture that you've established here during your classes is being 100% present. And I think students could feel it, kids could feel it, parents definitely feels it, and I would share that with any other school or any other martial arts instructor, is make sure you're present and be there in that moment for the student, because that's everything falls into place and makes it easier to learn and for the students. So
yeah, they can tell if you're being authentic. I've had just one more thing to add. You can go to the next question. It's always shocking to me. I've had parents, kind of come to me on the side, and they're like, "Thank you for, taking." If a kid's struggling with a move or a technique, I'll go over and kind of assist them and work through it best I can to get them to do it. And they're always like, "Thank you for taking the extra time." And it's, in my mind, I'm thinking that's what I'm here for. Apparently their experience elsewhere hasn't been the same. So, yeah, being present is a huge one.
Where do you see the next phase and you growing as a teacher be at Metro Jiu-Jitsu? So what is it? So you're one who believes that people have to grow and evolve as students, professors, teachers. Where do you see the next promotion or level of you in teaching your students?
That's a good question. I think it would be the more philosophy I've always tried to adopt whatever I'm teaching is the more personal you can make it, the better. Rather than like a mass-produced, we've all had those teachers in whatever grade, high school, college, that like they just wanted to push through the curriculum, whether you understood the math she taught that day or not. And that's one thing I want to be is intimately familiar with every student's of mind game and where they need to grow. One thing it was always like, I want it to be kind of a mixture of my responsibility to follow up with them, rather than waiting for them to come to me and ask, hey, coach, how come I haven't gotten promoted in 6 months? I go to them and be like, hey, for your next promotion, here's what I want to see. Here's what you really need to work on. And knowing that, like,
right.
Rather than, because, you can do that. And you and I would do that. Like, hey, I haven't gotten promoted. There's got to be a reason. Let me go check it out. Not everyone's like that. That rather than, and I think it could breed some discord. If they're not. So rather, I would just say, as the teacher, I would be proactive in going to my student and let them know what I want to see. What do I expect?
Are there any students that you find it hard to teach? Any personalities, learning styles?
Outside of the 5-year-olds, the younger they are, they're probably the most difficult, simply for the attention span. Those are, it's axiomatic. The ones that don't have a learning attitude are the hardest to teach. If you've got a student who thinks he knows everything you have to say, he's going to be hard to teach, versus someone who, like, the learning attitude I've always tried to have is, look, I'm paying this guy because he knows more than I do. So I'm going to, you've said before, I'm going to try to soak up everything I can out of him. I know he knows more than me. He knows more than me. I want to get it out of him, rather than like, oh, I know that. Then why am I here? Why don't you go open, go open your own school then?
Right. Okay. Coach David, we appreciate your time. Anything you want to share for our listeners on the subject of learning or teaching jiu-jitsu or martial arts in general?
One thing I on the subject of learning and kind of teachers in general is it's come up a lot, that you need to find a teacher that you're comfortable with. And it's like any other, it's like a college course or anything like that. We can all name our favorite teacher, period.
We can, but I mean, wouldn't it be fair to say when you first go to a school to sign up, it's like being on a first date. The teacher is going to show their best side, and they might try to sell you and only give you the best points of them. How do you, if you're going to check out a school, or start what could be a 10-year journey with somebody, like, is it realistic to think that I could make an educated decision after meeting somebody for 5 minutes when I'm only going to see the best side of that person?
Well, I guess that's a good point. And I part of that would come into that. That's one reason we're putting out all of all the content that we are. I'd say it's almost impossible to fake it. Like, on being as active as we are on social, when you see us on YouTube, when you see us on Facebook and Instagram and all these places, it's almost impossible to fake that. And then you're gonna walk in and then we're gonna be someone completely different. No. I mean, what you see on those is as real as it gets. We have plenty of people to support that. So I guess, other schools you don't have that luxury of seeing what the instructors are like. It's a roll of the dice, but
I would agree with that, because the biggest selling point that you're going to hear from my experience over the last 20 years is, we have the best school, we have the toughest guys, we have the most medals, and I would encourage people to really look into what does it take to have the toughest guys. Does that mean that everybody gets their ass beat in the school all the time? I mean, I don't think that's the healthiest way to to build the toughest school or the biggest school. So what I would encourage anybody listening when looking to start in a martial arts school, it could be a 10-year journey, is what are the strong points? So if you have a strong school, what about it makes it strong? Having a bunch of advanced students in the school doesn't necessarily make it a strong school. So in my opinion, having a strong school is really about how many people do you have are duplicating the culture that the school owner or the team wants. So
that's huge. I think, I think that's huge. One thing that we have found is your culture follows leadership. Period. I mean, we've all seen it in the job. We've all seen how a work atmosphere can follow a disgruntled manager or a disgruntled boss. We've all seen that, and so so that's why it's I agree with that 100%.
You know, I had this manager of mine, and that was in one of my really busy retail locations, and you want to talk about how culture could really poison a work atmosphere or a team. So this manager of mine actually had some issues with a employee, and so that we ended up parting ways with the employee. Obviously, we had to rehire some new staff, and that manager wanted to bring in somebody else. He almost recruited somebody among some of my other my retail stores to come work for him because he thought he would be good for his team. So we did that. We kind of gave him what he wanted. We let him cherry pick a little bit, and eventually that manager had a problem with him.
Yeah.
And then he had a problem with another person. So I drew a tree and I showed the manager. I said, "Look," I said, "you are at the top here. This is your store, and you're running the store. And just like a martial arts school, I think sometimes it's really hard for schools to make this decision. Sometimes if everybody underneath the leadership is not working, you got to cut out the leadership and bring somebody else in."
Yeah.
And jiu-jitsu's cult mentality is people get stubborn at the top, and they'll bleed it until it's too late. Until you lose lots of people in a school, or just ruin people's experience with martial arts.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, anything else you want to add?
That's it. No, that's plenty for today, guys. Don't forget to like the video, share our page. Feel free to reach out to us at metrojj.com. Emails metrobjj@gmail.com. Any questions you want to hear on the channel, hit us up, and we'll do our best to get them on here. Thanks so much.